then go on to list all of the different problems that she's had, and we're still going, we're still going, we're still going, we're still going. As Snow White is on track for a less than stellar box office, there seems to be some panic over who's going to get the blame for it.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
Those without a dog in the fight are already announcing that it's dead on arrival. And as I said in a previous video, they are cancelling the UK premiere over fears of negative press and will tightly control their press events in the future. This has now been added to with Hollywood scaling back their premiere. At around the same time, Disney is under fire from the kind of people Disney should have been hiring in the first place. The issue is that as Disney have been scaling back, what it really means is they're closing the press. We don't want you asking questions anymore. And this has led the press to go one of two ways. Either they're in complete cope mode, blaming everyone but themselves, or they come across kind of bitter and angry. The cope side of the press would be the kind of people saying that she's making a mountain out of a molehill, which I think we can agree would be realistic, if not linguistically accurate. Now, she decided to slam Disney's Snow White over the CGI dwarves. They decided to place the dwarven actors and actresses with CGI, even though these are little people with big talent. There are a lot of little people actors out there that would love to be part of this kind of movie. Yes, shove down the mines. Like Victorian England all over again, we just start ramming them up chimneys. The press have an obstacle when it comes to cope, though, because if you're the one being shut out of all the premiere events, if everything is staying the same, except for you, I mean, sure, they cancelled the London premiere, but the Hollywood one is pretty much unchanged. The event won't be scaled back, as some headlines have claimed. Variety. But we'll get back to that. The studio just isn't allowing regular red carpet press to attend in order to prevent Zegler and Gal Gadot from answering questions on the spot. The studio claiming that this isn't about the journalist or answering questions, they just want a more celebratory, family-friendly afternoon event to match the tone of the target audience. If you want to match the tone of the target audience, I don't know why you're holding a big, posh, red carpet premiere at all. The target audience for this movie is people with low standards. That's why, if anything, you should have held this event at a dive bar in Portland.
Mild-mannered Jeff Murdoch. Are you Spank Man?
My favourite thing is the way they try and write it off, though. Snow White isn't the first major film to manage a red carpet this way. I mean, they also did it with The Flash. It's always a great example, isn't it? You know, the one with Ezra Miller.
The Mad Goose Wizard, aka the Bengal Ghouls.
So the only example they have of shutting down the press in this regard is when Miller has been accused of several criminal acts. I also love that they try and downplay Zegler. Well, she just simply generated social media blowback. Well, then afterwards spending paragraph after paragraph after paragraph explaining everything she's done. But what's interesting in the Hollywood Reporter article is the comparison with the Variety one. It's the tone between the two of one going, well, you're not really scaling it back, you're just cutting out reporters. And that seems unfair because the last time you did this was down to a criminal. Whereas the Variety article is definitely one more of going, it's not us. We didn't do anything. Don't blame us. Wait, everything seems to be downplayed. You've got scaling back, which the other one said isn't even true, and trying to blame what's happened on Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot controversies. I especially like how they're dragging Gal Gadot into this. Someone who's been largely absent from Snow White commentary at all. But I can understand why they care when this article is written by Mark Melkin. Now, you may not think you know him, but you do.
Calls this the gayest, gayer and gayer as each episode goes. Gayest Marvel project. Gayest Marvel project. Gayest project Marvel has ever done.
He might be my favorite person in Hollywood at the moment. He is incredible at his job, simply because his demeanor is kryptonite to your average actress. He's so over the top and friendly, they can't help but just tell him what they think. And that's a problem if you're Rachel Zegler. So I can understand why Mark would be pissed, because he probably would have been the one at this red carpet event. And so as a personal investment in this media campaign, not becoming a habit. Across journalists at the moment, there's a lot of, it's not us, you can't blame us. Look, they said it. We may have asked the questions that got them to say it, and then reported on them saying it, but they're the ones that said it. It's their controversies. We promise. That's why you have a lot of, oh, well, it's Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, which are the problem. Look, this isn't a new Hollywood trend. It's a unique promotion strategy because of Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot controversies. Oh, it's probably Gal Gadot's fault. She wasn't even there at the premiere of Snow White because of her controversies. Disney shouldn't be doing this. Your marketing's crap. You're setting Rachel Zegler up to fail. You need to re-engage the old traditional models and let us on the red carpet. And while the outrage magnets are Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, it's Gal Gadot that's the outspoken one causing all the trouble. Zegler, she's attracted a lot of ire, but it's just a general youthful enthusiasm she exudes. People are attacking her because she's such a great actress. That's the problem. And this is bizarre. She seems ideally cast as a modernized. You have a big problem with history, traditional stories, and anyone of European ancestry. No, but she's perfect because she's not them, even though she's Polish. And how did Rachel Zegler get embroiled in this? Well, it's just the internet outrage generator. Star Wars is in a quiet period, and so now it's on her. She just made some innocuous comments about women being in roles of just completely innocuous. The problem isn't Rachel, because this is normal for an 85-year-old movie. Who really cares if she talks about leaders or bad things? The outrage hucksters that are causing the problem. The response is the problem, not the person saying it. In fact, shutting out the journalist is a really bad thing, because you're just burying Snow White then, aren't you? How is a movie supposed to succeed if you don't let the journalist onto the red carpet to talk to people about things?
Gayest project
Snow White ever produced. It's like a Snow White explosion. Cutting out the journalist is basically just a long winding road of lack of confidence in the film. And when they're not blaming Zegler and Gal Gadot's controversies, obviously we go back to the traditional kind of it's just toxic, fans. Toxic just means masculine when used in any context, as far as I can tell. What it means is you're not sugarcoating things. You're not behaving in the social consensus mechanism where you have to care about everyone else's feelings. You've got to wrap things up and present things in a way that won't offend us. Toxic just means you tell us how it is because you don't care how we feel. Right, yes, I'm glad you've caught on. But no, they just hated her because she's Latina. Which does mean she can't be Snow White. Just a fact. But it is funny when he goes, well, actually, they just hate her because she's Latina. Then go on to list all of the different problems that she's had, and we're still going. We're still going. We're still going. We're still going. All of this is listing the controversies she's been through. But they start by going, it's just toxic people because she's Latina. We're gonna downplay the next 10 paragraphs. There is a lot of this as well, where people are trying to claim that everything's been scaled back. The journalist can't talk to her about it because of a war going on the other side of the world. Let's face it, if you're a journalist and you were planning to ask them about that in the first place, you're an idiot. That would be like going on the red carpet and asking them how they feel about what I ate for lunch. Completely irrelevant to everyone involved. And so now they're taking meticulous steps to carefully manage and organize the premiere and the press to prevent them being asked any controversial questions, trying to control the narrative and avoid unscripted moments. Hollywood actors have been in a weird time period the last few years where everything aligned with what they thought anyway. So they could be as insane, as deranged as possible, and it didn't really harm their career. You can see this with people like Mark Ruffalo and Mark Hamill. This seems to be a problem with Marks in general. In any profit-making business, with their social media posts, they just wouldn't have been hired for anything. And yet, they've been allowed to indulge. And what it's caused them to get is just more extreme as time goes on, because nobody put them back in their box. What we're witnessing here is them being put back in their box. You can't be trusted anymore to have unscripted moments. We know how deranged you'll be if we just let you talk without being told what to say. And so now you can't. And it will be interesting to see whether this is a general Hollywood trend, if they do try to actually roll things back to a level which doesn't repulse human beings. It may be that more and more the press gets like the movies. Every single thing is scripted. The questions are known in advance. They only trust certain reporters that they know won't rock the boat. The answers are already written for them and then just repeated. It may be that the more actors have to act like normal human beings, the less they can be trusted to talk. And Snow White could be the first example of that. That you can tell that the journalists are not happy about getting excluded from the red carpet. But if this is the only option that the movies have, what compromises are journalists willing to make in order to get back on it? Would Mark Malkin be willing to censor the questions that he asks on red carpets in order to get access back to them? It's an interesting question for journalistic integrity. And while having access has always been a bit dubious in that what strings are attached to that getting that access in the first place, and these questions only get increased the more limited and exclusive that access is, are we going to see even more strings in the future?
At the end of the day, this is a story of representation, and it matters.
Because Snow White hasn't stopped marketing completely. They are still still allowing some people to have access. They've just been for outlets which are far safer, far more part of the traditional mainstream. So they've sent Gadot round Good Morning America, live with Callie and Mark, and The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Ones that definitely wouldn't want to rock the boat. For me though, the funniest part is how they've sent Gadot round all of these mainstream television shows, and then Zegler, well, she got shipped off to Broad. They deported her to the other side of the world. We don't want you in America. No, you need to go to Tokyo. We can't trust you on television. Piss off to a different country. I do think deporting Rachel Zegler may be going a bit far, and yet, judging by the headlines, seems to be working. She's definitely not caused any controversies while she's been in Japan. She also did an event at a Spanish castle. However, this was one of the events that was scaled back after they realised we can't talk to journalists. After the decision about the London premiere, yeah, the Spanish premiere actually got relocated to a remote castle. And so rather than having massive events in Los Angeles, London, and around the world, they decided to hold this in a place which has a population of 51,000. Will make it safe. Nobody knows who she is. Do they have running water? We need to know. These people might actually just live in a castle. They have electricity generated by a water wheel. The thing is, as they go, oh, there was a video shared to Instagram. She looks incredible in a white sleeveless dress. They can only go off an Instagram video because media outlets were not invited to the event.
I long to leave the walls behind me.
And I have to say, as you can see in the video, it does give the right atmosphere for the show. So it's just her in front of a castle singing, surrounded by families with kids, taking selfies and not giving any press interviews. I'm assuming this is the result of the selfie picture we've just seen. Maybe you should have taken a second one, eh? But once again, we hit the question of access. This is a small event held with 51,000 people in the general population, and the media weren't there, but some people were. The videos on Instagram, the pictures got out because of access. It just wasn't the mainstream media that got access. They can't be trusted anymore. And so, you had VIPs standing in as a crowd. Select guests, I'm assuming hand-chosen guests, get special exclusive screening of the movie as influencers. A name most people on YouTube despise, simply because of its connotations. You're not here to entertain or to advise people. No, you're there to influence them. It's very salesman, except worse than a salesman. Because while a good salesman will sell you something that actually suits what you want, these are people that are there to influence you. And whenever somebody wants to influence you in a certain way, you have to ask, why? For who? The idea of influencing someone kind of means that you weren't going to go down that path without them. According to Disney, unnamed press, content creators, and family were among those who gathered outside the media castle. However, there didn't appear to be any big names among the circles in attendance. Many of the content creators boasted mere thousands of followers rather than millions. So we cut out the journalists because they can't be trusted. We cut out anybody with a larger following because they can't be trusted. At the end of the day, one of the reasons that people are popular is because the audience trusts them. And so if people feel like you're influencing them, like you're lying to them, they don't watch you anymore. Authenticity is what gets you one of those larger followings in the first place. It's people putting their trust in you and your opinions that make them watch. And so it's interesting then, they've given them to some of the smaller creators who wouldn't be able to market things as well, but also might be more easily influenced. The smaller your channel is, the more getting that inside track, that exclusivity is valuable to you. Having a unique selling point to get eyeballs on your channel is massive and can definitely accelerate that growth for a younger channel. So this is an interesting tactic that doesn't actually give Disney as much benefit as you would assume, except for control. And you kind of wondered how these were selected. A Spanish Snow White movie fan account, which has 3,735 followers on Instagram. They nabbed one of the very select invites. I mean, at a premiere event, you would expect more people than this to attend. Then they also invited a makeup artist, as well as a Valencia influencer. Getting a lot of Rings of Power vibes, isn't it?
My colour presentation. Someone that looks just like me.
There are not many women in it. Women who are in it never speak to one another. Female representation.
I wasn't represented, my disability or my queerness.
We're going to invite a load of people, nothing to do with the IP. They're not interested in it, but they will want to be wined and dined. And that's what happened. Karen described the event as one of the best experiences of her life as she was wined, dined, and gifted with freebies as part of the festivities. Because it makes you feel more special. You've never been treated like this before. And what were these freebies? Well, you can see the quality of the setup for the meal and drinks, the kind of menu that they get, all free of course, and a gift box of Pandora. Served an array of banquet dishes with wine and gifted presents from Pandora. But I'm sure that this highly selective, hand-picked group of people will remain completely unbiased, despite the gifts. that were given, because we all know being wine-dined and given free gifts has never influenced anybody in the history of the world. This is why you can do it to judges, lawyers, and police. The thing is, though, I'm not sure that even this is helping the movie. You can do all of these really small-scale, hand-picked PR pieces, where there's no scandal, no problem, and it definitely gives the right tone that you want for the movie. Zegler singing, which is her strength, in pretty princess dresses in front of a family. Can't get more on tone, on brand than that, without changing Rachel Zegler to a different person. The counterpoint is, though, when you have to get rid of the journalists, and without any of the drama around it, you don't get the virality. Sure, she's singing in front of a castle, she's singing in Japan, it's not getting out there. You have a very small select event for a few hundred people, and they're really the only people that know about it. You're inviting makeup influencers. Well, it's got nothing to do with Snow White. Writing a channel with 3,700 followers on Instagram. Well, they can't get the message out to many people. What you end up with is a great marketing pitch that is perfectly on tone, that nobody will know about or care about. Ironically, the drama over Rachel Zegler is why everybody knows about this movie. It's just, unfortunately, all news is not good news. That definitely isn't true. The thing is, I'm not sure that any of these new press pieces will counter anything, because Rachel can't keep her mouth shut, says fans. Nice try, but I'm not going to see this movie. Looks like there's no one else there, so kind of like most theaters when it opens. Walt will not forgive you, Disney. You're brave to leave the comments on. The main issue is you can't turn over all the bad press with pictures like this. If there'd been no press at all and then you saw these things, it probably would have worked. But this isn't dramatic enough to overturn all the bad blood that you've caused before. Nor were half-arsed imitations of Henry Cavill without actually rowing back on everything you said and apologizing for what you said, regretting what you said, changing your opinions, because we know what those opinions are. And it's definitely affected the box office of the movie. So with Snow White likely debuting around $50 million. If it comes in at the high end, it'll be somewhere on par to Cinderella remake, which opened at 67 in 2015. Like inflation isn't a thing. And also, 50 million is nowhere near 67 million, just so we're aware. And while a lot of the problems with this movie were indeed caused by Peter Dinklage back in the day, the majority of the flack has come down to one person. And it isn't Gal Gadot. This is someone who cannot stay out of any topic unless they're seemingly gagged by not being allowed to talk at all to the press. And so, as Disney is making a last-minute scramble in order to salvage what they can from Snow White, you have the question of what's in Rachel Zegler's future? Where will her career path take her? And that seems to be no longer in the movies. Instead, she's going to be playing a character at the London Palladium at theatre. Ironically, the same place that Snow White was cancelled. And maybe that is karma in itself, because I tell you one thing, I wouldn't wish being in London on anybody. Doesn't matter what Rachel said, she doesn't deserve that. Well, those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.